Senator, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I super appreciate it. I do want to start out with just a little bit about your political career. Looking back, you've held office for our state for 18 years,
That's
right?
correct.
And of course, Montana is a predominantly red state.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about why you're continuing to do this. Do you feel as enthusiastic about this as you did back when you first won?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I'm a Montanan, and I love this state, and I love the people of this state. And I think this is the greatest state and the greatest country that's ever existed on earth. And it didn't happen by accident. It happened by people in governmental levels, whether that's at the state or the federal level, that understood this was a great state and wanted to keep it this way, whether it was in public lands or whether it's in healthcare, whether it's a woman's right to choose. The list is long. I've got some seniority in the Senate. The Senate is based on seniority. I'm able to get some things done that can really help this state and move this state forward economically, and we're going to continue to do that. But the bottom line why I'm running again is because I love this state. I want my kids and my grandkids to have the same kind of opportunity that my parents and grandparents gave me.
People tend to frown upon the term career politician.
Yeah.
And you beat Conrad
I do too,
Burns
by the way.
after 18 years when he was in service.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you've become a career politician?
No, I really don't, because I've continued to have a real job. I'm the only one in the Senate that has a real job outside being a United States Senator, and that's I'm a farmer. And Charlotte and I are very, very lucky. We get to farm the land that my grandparents homesteaded back in 1910 that my folks took over in the 40s, and that we took over from them in the late 70s. And I look forward to the day when I can retire from farming. I've got a grandkid that's senior in high school, and if all things work out well and I can get him to come to college here in the Treasure State, I think he'll be taking the farm over, and that'll be a very, very good thing for me and the family, because it'll be the next generation on the farm. But no, the reason is because I've been able to stay grounded because of my work in production agriculture. It's my first love, short of my wife. It's my first love, and it's something that I've wanted to do since I was 8 years old and continue to do it to this day.
Is it fair to say farmer first, senator second?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to put on my tombstone.
Okay. Polls. We want to talk about the polls a little bit.
Sure.
They do show your Republican opponent is
Sure.
widening that gap a little bit. Are you worried about that?
I've had tough races every time I've run. If I'd have talked to you, Andrea, 2 years ago, I'd have said this is going to be a tough race, or a year and a half ago, this tough race. It's going to be a tough race. It's going to require us to do an all-out effort, not make any mistakes, move forward in a way that Montanans understand what I've done for them and what I'm going to do for them moving forward if they give me another 6 years. And in the end, I think we'll win, because I think Montanans understand how important it is to have good, solid representation that understand rural America and understand Montana values back in Washington, D.C.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit and ask about Vice President Kamala Harris.
Yes.
In 2020, you did endorse her as the VP for President Biden. In
Sure.
fact, I found a tweet that said she's a proven fighter that you put out. Why are you not choosing to endorse her now?
Because I'm up for election, and I want this race to be about Montana. I don't want it to be about the presidential race. They can fight their own presidential battles. The fact is I don't care who gets elected to the presidency. I'm going to be able to work with them. We'll push back on them when it isn't good for Montana, and we'll work with them when it's good for Montana. But I don't want this race to be about talking about who the next president's going to be. I want this race to talk about whether a woman's going to have a right to choose, whether we're going to continue to have public lands in the state, whether we're going to continue to have access to health care in the most frontier areas of our state. So that's what I want to talk about, when in fact folks have been trying to nationalize this, and they continue to try to nationalize this race, and to some extent they've been successful in that. The truth is this race isn't about the presidential. This race is about Montana and who the Montanans want representing them and their values back in Washington, D.C.
We have heard, though, from some Montana Democrats who have said and have expressed that perhaps maybe you are taking their votes for granted, because it seems like with your campaign strategy, you've taken a more moderate side. How do you respond to that?
I'm a Montanan. Montana's a moderate state. Montana was built by people working together, not through division, but by working together. I think it's the same thing in government. I'm one of the most effective senators in the United States Senate, one of the most bipartisan senators in the United States Senate. That's just a fact. And I'm going to continue to work and do best by Montana. I'm not extreme on the left. I'm not extreme on the right. I'm right down the middle. And I continue to do things to help working families, to help small businesses, to help family farm agriculture, to keep this country strong militarily, and to take care of our veterans when we get back home. That's who I am, and that's what I'll continue to be.
Do you think it's harder to campaign and be a Democrat in a predominantly red state?
I've never lived anywhere else. I never have. This is, I've basically lived 100 miles from where I was born my entire life. This is all I know. So whether it was my days on the school board or my days in the state legislature or my days in the U.S. Senate, Montana's about hard work. I mean, we're sitting in Butte, America right now. This town's about hard work, and so is the whole state. And so I'm accustomed to hard work, and you just roll up your sleeves, you get the job done. That's what we do in this state.
I do want to ask you about some of the issues that you obviously feel very passionate about. Let's start with the Farm Bill.
Sure.
You, again, have said that you are the only working farmer.
Yep.
You take that very seriously. It's very near and dear to you, but we have not had a Farm Bill.
That's
now.
right.
So where are we at on this, and are you taking the leadership role in
So
it?
everything gets tied up in politics in Washington, D.C. It's unfortunate, but until we get the money out of politics, this is the way it is, and I think we need to get the money out of politics, and I got some bills to do that. But that aside, it's really important we get a farm bill for certainty's sake. You know, farmers struggle with markets, they struggle with input costs, they struggle with weather. The farm bill is about the only thing of certainty that they have to deal with. And look, it's tied up with SNAP benefits right now and reference prices. All this stuff can be worked out, but you got to have people at the table that want to get it worked out. Right now, it's politics all the time. I anticipate we'll get a farm bill done during the lame duck, the time between the election and when the next Congress starts, because the crazy season of the election will be over, and people will stop saying, well, who gets an advantage if we pass a farm bill? Does this party get an advantage or that party? The fact is food security is really, really important. Family farm agriculture is really, really important. We need to get a farm bill done. I have been working hard. I do not sit on the Ag Committee, believe it or not, the only actively engaged farmer in the Senate, and I'm not on the Ag Committee, but that doesn't matter. We continue to put pressure on Stabenow and Bozeman to try to get this farm bill done, and we'll continue to do that moving forward. By the way, that's the chairman and ranking member of the Senate Ag Committee.
Does it give you some heartache that you don't sit on the Ag Committee to really, I mean, as a position that you're in?
So I've got 5 really, really good committees, and I would love to be on Ag, but at some point in time, there's a limit to the number of committees you can sit on. But what I do is, as I continue to educate people in Washington, D.C. about the challenges of production agriculture and try to push forward with a farm bill that meets the needs of our folks that are in production agriculture. Look, it used to be the entire Senate was farmers almost. Now they're few and far between. I think that's unfortunate. But the truth is that agriculture is still the #1 industry in Montana. Having a farm bill is really critically important to make sure that those farmers have certainty moving forward.
So we already know where you stand on abortion rights and reproductive rights. You and I have had this conversation before. I've asked you these questions.
Yes.
But what I do want to ask you about this is, do you support it being restored at a national level, or do you think that there is some strength in the issue going to the states?
I do not think there's any strength of it going to the states. I think that Roe v. Wade needs to be restored at the national level. It's been there my entire adult life until it was thrown out with the Dobbs decision, the biggest reduction of freedom in my lifetime. These are very difficult decisions. They're complex decisions. They're decisions that shouldn't be made by a U.S. senator or a judge or a bureaucrat. They need to be made by the woman and their doctor. That's fundamentally where I'm at, have been. That's fundamentally where I'm at. I think it's just critically important.
Okay, do you think that campaign-wise there is a measure on the ballot for November that inevitably will bring out people to vote for? And when they see that there's a Democrat also running, campaign strategy-wise, do you feel like that's going to help you?
So what I've talked about is I think it's important to see I-128 passes. I support it. I think it's the right thing to do, but it's the people of Montana's decision. But I don't know if it's going to make a big difference in the race. It could. I hope it does, because I think freedom is important to Montanans. And I don't think Montanans want the federal government or the state government telling them how to make healthcare decisions. And so I think it's going to have some impacts. Whether it's an impact that will put me over the top or would make a difference if I was going to win anyway, I can't tell. You just never know.
I want to ask you a little bit about some of the energy jobs that we've seen.
Yes.
Sibanye Stillwater, 700 laid off.
Yep.
Pyramid closed its Sealy location after 75 years.
Yep.
The question always goes back to Colstrip.
Yep.
And we've seen some EPA rulings come in.
Yep.
What do you think the plan is for Colstrip?
So I pushed back on those EPA rulings because I think they single out one plant in the United States, and I don't think that's the right thing to do for the federal government. It shows you how this one-size-fits-all can have some real negative impacts. I think Colstrip's going to continue to be a player in energy for my lifetime and beyond. You know, the coal plants there, we're pushing to try to keep them open to 2035. I think that's about the end of their life cycle. But I'm going to tell you, things have come forth in the nuclear era that is really quite positive. I've never been a big fan of nuclear power, but I have been because the technology is caught up to make sure that we don't add to the nuclear waste that's out there. And I think it's a real net positive. And I think moving forward, and I've been talking to companies that make energy, that generate electricity, that are in the nuclear business about taking a look at Colstrip. We're just investing about $700 million into a tie line that goes east. So now not only does Colstrip go west, it's going to go east too through the infrastructure bill that I wrote. And I think Colstrip is set up in great shape to continue generation like they have in the past. It may be with nuke instead of coal moving forward. Who knows though? You know, there's technology improving in coal too. It may end up being in coal too. But the truth is that we need to continue to make efforts to try to reduce the amount of CO2 that's going in the atmosphere for climate change purposes. We can see what's gone on in Florida in the last few days. It's a huge issue. And by the way, from a fiscally responsible standpoint, with the amount of disasters that's out there, Colstrip needs to continue to be a player, but we need to do it right.
It's so funny that you bring up nuclear. It's so expensive though to get going, and we've seen it happen in Wyoming, but we're seeing a billionaire back it. So how do we make that transition? How do we afford that?
So I think that we saw a plant down in Georgia just open up that's huge. I've been talking with the Southern company that's built that plant. We're seeing some stuff in Wyoming going on. Look, I think that there's always opportunities out there to help promote different energy sources, and I think this is an opportunity to help promote it, moving it forward. And look, this isn't something that's going to be online for a week or a year or 10 years. This is a long-term investment that's going to pay back over the long term, just like coal.
Let's talk about the border a little bit. Your opponent calls your policies on the border radical, but we do know that you did vote for the bipartisan border bill. You and I had that conversation.
For sure.
It still failed. So we've also seen the impact from the border here in Montana. We've seen the fentanyl seizures just skyrocketed. We've seen it in Billings. It's very near and dear to us in Billings. We've seen it in our tribal community. So what is the issue at the border? I mean, and do you really feel like there is a path to amnesty for some of our...
No, there is not a path to amnesty. I do believe that, and I've never voted for a path for amnesty. I think that just like, unless you're Native American, just like our ancestors did, you get in line, you follow the law, you pay your taxes, you learn the language, and then, you know, if you meet those criteria, you're possibly become a U.S. citizen. Look, the border's a political football right now. The reason that bill passed, or failed, is because of politics. That's not the way it should be. It shouldn't be about Democrats or Republicans. It should be about Americans. And the border needs to be secure. And I pushed back on the Biden administration many, many times on their policy on the southern border, because I believe the southern border needs to be secure. We had a bipartisan bill to do exactly that. By the way, my opponent said he wouldn't vote for it before he even read it because of political pressure. That's not how Montanans expect their senators to act. And he's running for the position, so you need to act appropriately. But the bottom line is this. At this moment in time, it's a political football. And I think probably after the election, that bill that we put up 8 months ago will probably pass. Unfortunately, over the last 8 months, there's been a lot of folks come across the southern border in particular that shouldn't have come across the southern border. The other thing I'll say is this. We're a northern border state. People forget about the northern border, but the truth is we need to keep our eyes fixed on both borders. And when you see stuff going on in the southern border, like there was 10,000 people, Customs Border Patrol agents that would have been put on the southern border. With that bill, some of those folks would have come to the northern border, and we need them on the northern border too, because the crooks are going to find a way to go through the weakest link in the fence. And if we've got Border Patrol agents there helping us out, it keeps this country safer. Okay. It's critically important for this country.
Yeah, the border it's a tough issue. It's a really tough issue.
Well, it is a tough issue, but like the fentanyl, We had opportunity with that bill to put x-ray machines at the ports. That would have stopped the fentanyl from coming in this country. 10,000 additional folks with technology, tightening the asylum laws, being able to shut the border down if it was overrun. All those things were in that bill. But it got tied up in political baloney, and I'm being kind when I say baloney. It got tied up in Washington, D.C. garbage. And that's not what America needs right now. They need people to work together to make America a better place. China wants to replace us as the world's leading economic power and military power. We need to take their long game plans seriously, and we need to start acting like adults in Washington, D.C.
What do you think your biggest, so cliche, but what do you think your biggest success is? What's the thing that you feel so like that's your glory after 18 years?
I'm very proud of being one of the 10 members, 5 Ds and 5 Rs, that wrote the infrastructure bill. It was the biggest investment in infrastructure since the year I was born, and I think it will provide benefits for generations to come. I'm very, very proud of the fact that I wrote the PACT Act and got it passed amongst the chagrin of a lot of members in the Congress, but our veterans came up and said, we need this. It's the right thing to do. First time ever in this country that we ever took care of the issue of toxic exposure. It's the largest increase of health care and benefits ever in the VA history. I did that. And I think that if you look at the stuff we're doing in health care right now, you know, moving the ball forward, trying to get more residency slots in this state, long term that's going to pay benefits. And we need to continue to work on mental health. You know, Montana continues to lead the nation in suicides. Whether you're a veteran or whether you're a farmer or whether you're a small business owner or whether you're a worker, mental health is really important, and I think it's the biggest healthcare issue this country is going to face over the next 50 years. I will say something moving forward that I think is really, really important that Congress tackles sooner rather than later, and much sooner, is AI. AI can do, artificial intelligence can do a lot of really, really good things, but we got to put some sideboards on it so it doesn't do the really, really bad things, like put watermarks to make sure that people know the difference between the real thing and something that's created by AI. I think that's going to be job one at the beginning of this next Congress.
Is there something that you don't see eye to eye on most Democratic things, and you do align more with Republicans?
Obviously, the Second Amendment to come out first. You know, I mean, I've got more guns than I need and fewer than I want. But the truth is that I think Second Amendment is fundamental to who we are in Montana, to be able to protect ourselves, to be able to go hunting. I think the southern border is another one. I pushed back. Talked to Mayorkas many times, who's the head of the Department of Homeland Security, saying, you know, what the hell are you guys doing? And some ideas that they, you know, maybe ought to keep their eye focused on the problem, because it is a problem. If we don't know who's coming across the border, we don't know who's coming across the border. That's a huge challenge.
Let's talk about campaign and,
Sure.
and funds and how you raise.
Yeah.
You were the largest recipient.
Yep.
You're like, I know this is coming, Andrea.
No, that's good.
You've now gone to the second highest recipient.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's okay. That's cool.
You've now gone to the second highest, Senator Tester. Republicans contend that over your tenure in the Senate that you have become enmeshed in the same corrupt DC establishments that you wanted to fight against.
Give me one of those Republicans, just one of those Republicans, that will get on my bill to stop corporations from being people, because they're not people. And we're seeing corporations, out-of-state corporations, funnel millions and millions of dollars into the races. Give me one of those, one of the Republicans that are making those claims, that are willing to put caps back on the kind of money that's being spent on these campaigns, so that you would be capped at spending, say, $1,000. Instead, there are no caps. Mm-hmm. And you got folks that got more change in their pocket than I'm worth, quite frankly, that are pumping, once again, millions and millions of dollars into this race. Why? So they can try to influence people to make it a different thing. But let me tell you this. Big Pharma, prime example. I've probably gotten money from Big Pharma. I don't think there's much doubt about that. What did I do? When it came to putting Montana first, I said, you know what? Medicare needs to negotiate prescription drugs. Big Pharma didn't like that, by the way. It's going to save Montanans on some drugs up to 80%. But it wasn't that they funded anything in many of my campaigns. I don't look at that stuff anyway, and I don't care. But the truth is, we need to negotiate prescription drugs. Why? Because they're too doggone expensive, and we need to help out Montana seniors and everybody else too, by the way, because it will help out everybody down the line. Same thing with cap and insulin. That's just one example of many where I'm going to do what's right for Montana first. And it's what I've done every year I've been there. Why? Because I'm a Montanan. When this gig's over with, I'm going to continue to be a Montanan. I'm going to continue to be farming west of Big Sandy. I want our government to work for Montana and for the people of this country.
Do you think that that's all they have? Because that's what they use, or your opponents and Republicans use that a lot. And so you're saying...
For sure, but what I'm saying is this is the landscape. It's like playing football and only having one leg. I mean, it puts you at a big disadvantage. I'm going to do what I need to do to win. This is the field. But I'm going to tell you, I want that field to change. I don't think the voters are better informed when they go to the ballot box because we have unlimited spending on these campaigns. Look, we're in Butte. This is a place where Copper Kings tried to buy U.S. senator seats, okay? Montana led the charge on making sure that we had free, fair, transparent elections. All that was thrown out by the United States Supreme Court. It's time Congress acts and puts it back in, but it has to be done in a bipartisan way, otherwise we'll never get it passed.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible?
I absolutely think it's possible. I think it needs to be a very high priority. I think our democracy depends upon it. Too much money's going into these races.
Let's talk about what you do see for yourself after you're done.
Yeah.
After you decide,
Yeah.
or the voters decide, either
Yeah,
way.
Either way.
Do you go back to Big Sandy and you continue farming?
You're damn right. No, I'm telling you what. I said this earlier, but I was 8 years old. I got two older brothers. And thank God they went different ways. My oldest brother's a veterinarian. My middle brother spent 35 years in the Air National Guard. And when I was 8 years old, I went up to my dad, before this even happened, and I said, I want to be a farmer. And I was lucky enough that my two older brothers said, we're going a different way. You can have it, son. And I got married, got really lucky and married an incredible woman. And she's been by my side the whole time for 47 years. And we've been on that farm since I graduated from college. And it's what I really love. It's truly what I love. It's something that I get up in the morning and I look forward to. I don't care if it's going out and cleaning out a grain bin or running a tractor or getting some seed cleaned, whatever it might be. I just like that work. And there's a real feeling of accomplishment with farming, with agriculture. Now, does it have its ups and downs? Yeah, when the white combine comes in, a hailstorm, and wipes you out after you spent all year long, and it happens 10 days before that crop's ready to cut, which happened 3 years ago. Wow. Yeah, it kind of takes the gas out of you. But the truth is, I wouldn't change it for any other occupation in the world. You know, we're in the middle of the baseball playoffs, and the baseball players are always saying, you know, I got the greatest job. I get to play baseball. I feel the same way about production agriculture.
Well, you have gotten some things done, though. I mean, would you ever consider serving Montana? Would you ever consider a run for governor?
No. That day is coming past 20 years ago.
Think so?
When I actually thought about doing that at a moment in time. But no, I've been able to do some good things in the United States Senate, and I did some great things when I was in the state legislature too. And I just, you know, look, if this works out or doesn't work out, if it's this year, if it's 6 years from now, no, I intend fully to go back to the farm and continue. And then I've got to figure out how to wean myself off it once my grandkid takes over. Truthfully.
You have talked a lot about, you know, what you want to see happen
Yeah.
if you're reelected and,
Yeah.
and moving back in. What do you think that first priority is going to be? Is it the border? Is it the...
Oh, yeah, look, I mean, I hope the border gets done, the lame duck. I hope the farm bill gets done, the lame duck. If it doesn't, those two are top priorities in the next Congress. And then I will tell you that there's some things to do on oversight of the VA and of the infrastructure bill that we need to focus on too. But we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Mm-hmm. I think we've got to come forth with some really good policies on AI. I am very, very concerned about the direction this headed. And like I said, it can do some great things for humanity, but it can also destroy humanity. And I don't want the latter, I want the former. So Congress needs to get educated, and myself included, and move forward with some good policies to put some sideboards around AI.
Senator, thank you.
You bet. Pleasure to meet. Pleasure to visit with you, Andrea. Thank you.